Yay. Got it.
Yeah, that's cool. So
Yeah.
here we are, and we've already got Victor in the chats.
Hey, Victor.
So yeah. So how are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Good. Yeah, I'll go over why I'm yawning so much in challenges, but
Okay.
I haven't slept in a while. So yeah, should we jump in?
Yeah, should we start with like the exercise thing very, very briefly?
Yes.
Okay.
I have been keeping up on pull-ups and push-ups. I'm up to 9 pull-ups per set.
That's brutally powerful.
Thanks. And I'm back to being able to do the switch grip in the air. So that's good. I'm down about 6 pounds with the intermittent fasting and the meal replacements. So that's how I'm doing.
Sweet.
How about you, Josh?
So 10 more reps in my my rowing, and every other day I was alternating, because actually when Scott mentioned that, I was like, oh, I can do that. So on the days that I'm not lifting, I now do the alternate, like every 50 pulls, I'll just switch,
Cool.
which is actually pretty good. I can do, I guess, a flexed arm hang for like 30 seconds.
Awesome.
But that's it.
No, that's great.
Pull, and then I still haven't gotten to the point where I can get the grip to the extent that I need, like to be able to do an effective pull-up. But I've been trying. So, and then I upped my weightlifting by 10 pounds, and so now I'm doing like 40 lifts of like that are 10 pounds heavier than like from like a month ago, which is kind of rad.
That's awesome.
And that's fun to see. Like, that's the cool byproduct of like lifting or doing like exercise where you're building muscle, is like seeing a result like that where I'm not necessarily visibly seeing that many results. Like, it's very slow in that end. But when you get, like you were just describing, when you get to like one of those things you couldn't do, and then you suddenly can do it, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually getting stronger. Like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's a fun result. So, and then I'm at, on planks, I'm at 30 seconds, 3 sets at 30 seconds, which is brutal, that last 30 seconds. I want to get it to like a minute, but doing 3 sets at 30 for planks like on a daily basis, weirdly enough, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but to me that's pretty hard.
No, it is. Are you doing that before or after your pull-ups?
After.
Yeah, that'll make it worse.
Yeah, but I figure it's better then because it's more rigorous, and so like that's actually putting more tension on it to kind of make it work. So yeah, so that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Scott?
Well, I think I need to step up my game because you guys keep upping the thing, and I'm kind of doing the same thing. So
yeah, but your same thing is like I run for like 3 hours a day.
No, it's not 3. It's about 1. No.
That's a long run.
It's a long time to run, dude.
But yeah, so I did take a break on Saturday from running, but other than that, no, Sunday that I took a break. But other than that, I've been running every day, and then I probably I think 4 or 5 out of the 7 days I've been doing the rowing machine and everything, but I still haven't like changed my diet or anything. And I usually weigh myself on Mondays, and I didn't weigh myself today. I guess it just slipped my mind. Either that or I'm afraid. So I don't know. I'm hoping like once it cools down, then I can run more, because I was like running twice a day when it was cooler.
The heat, man. I mean, like, to people who don't live in California or Arizona, like especially Arizona.
Well, it could also be the other way too. If you live in a place where it's super cold, there's like, so luckily, I mean, it's at least I can still do it. I mean, if it's super cold, there's just like no way, especially if it's snowing or whatever. But at least I can get up early and then at least go a little bit. So, so I can't complain too much. But once it does start to cool down a little more, maybe I can either stay out longer or go like twice or whatever. So, hopefully that'll be the case. So
cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so we're keeping up on that. Josh, what have you gotten done in the last 48 hours?
Okay. One more health thing. So I have effectively, I'm on day 5 again, quitting smoking because
good.
Yeah, I had like a fallout like the day after we did the art check. Where
Yeah.
I was like, woo, it's all about like setting goals. But so far I'm on day 5 again, so
that's awesome. Philip DeFranco just ran a story on vaping.
Nice.
There's the first recorded vaping deaths that have been tracked. Yeah.
The thing I will say, like, this is in no way a defense of vaping or anything, but all of the cases that have come out, it seems like it's people who are vaping weed, which is something to kind of consider if you still vape. Like, I'm not saying vaping's healthy, but I'm saying, like, if you're vaping like THC, like that might be a completely different problem right now, because it looks like there's a big influenza kind of thing going on with some strain in the weed that people were vaping. Which
and the main thing is, like, we don't really know much yet.
Oh yeah.
So everybody's guessing, but one of the guesses that makes sense to me is you're vaporizing an oil.
Yeah.
Which once it's like not hot anymore, will turn back into an oil, and your lungs are like notoriously bad at dealing with anything other than gases.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And in that exact case, like THC is an oil, so that's something.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
But at the same time, like, I don't think it's healthy, and I also think addiction is something to kick. If you're addicted to anything, try to kick it. Unless it's comics and you just delve in. Speaking of comics and comics addiction, so I got the most of the page inked. I actually kind of made a last minute decision on that 5th panel, where initially in the roughs I had it kind of like with a lot of hatching, and I was debating, like, should I have a crowd, should I hatch it? And I realized actually just having the chairs like kind of allows a little more focus. And overdoing the line work on that didn't really make a lot of sense. So I might still go over it and shade it, but I'm not sure, because I kind of like it just nice and clean with the focus on those 2 characters. So
looks cool.
But but that's what I've gotten done so far. Yeah.
Cool.
What about you, Scott? What did you get done?
So I've been working on a few videos, a lot of videos actually, because I'm in the background. I'm editing my Making Comics 101, which is a lot of editing. I mean, I'm trying to make it really sharp and production value, and this one I'm like trying to cut all the ahs and ums and everything out. So I mean, it just took me a good portion of today working on one of those. But I'm working on that in the background, and then I shot I just released a video on basic, sort of an iPad review, kind of an iPad review, not so much.
I watched it. You know what's weird is this is just a weird question.
Yeah.
Didn't you get that a while ago?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to go to, because I mean, I bought that before Cory and I went to Creative South. So I had this video because I wanted this backup video in case there was a point where I couldn't release a video, or at least I had the footage. I probably edited it together probably like maybe a month ago, and it's just kind of been sitting there in case I needed to put something out, because while I'm working on this other thing, I still want to put out content. And I'm also doing the Take Me to Your Leader Tuesday thing with Marshall. But so I just edited another video to try to kind of keep caught up, and it's basically like a tour of my mural. Because when I did my studio tour, I did that, and I said, well, if anyone's interested, I can also just do a tour of the whole mural in that room over there. So I did that, but yeah, so the iPad video is pretty old. So and since then I've been using it a lot. So I'm getting, even though in the beginning I said, you know, this is probably not the review that you're looking for. I tried to explain exactly what it was, and then people are complaining because Yeah, you said you were going to talk about the iPad, and all you did was put stickers on it. So, but I was talking about basically the videos about sort of my frustration with Apple and everything, and it was more of an unboxing and everything. And I may get into some of the features, but at the time I hadn't really used it. And there's so many other videos out there where people go through all that. I'd just be repeating what other people have done. So, but you can't please everyone, you know.
Yeah, and you introed it pretty well, where it's like, you know, you make it pretty clear at the beginning, like this isn't going to be that kind of review.
Yeah, not clear enough, evidently. Yeah, I said, and I'm guilty of that too. I don't always read the descriptions of videos.
Yeah.
Or I don't think very many people do it all, but I did definitely put exactly what you were going to get in the description of the video.
So
I said this
in the intro. You even mentioned.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just, but I mean, I'm not too worried about it. I mean, I pretty much put it out there. But so anyway, I've been just doing a lot of videos,
Nice.
A lot of editing, working on a commission, which I don't do a lot of, but this is sort of for a friend, and then some freelance work, but yeah, that's just mostly videos and all that stuff. And yeah, so, and also working on a font, another kind of font set. So yeah,
That's cool. That's awesome.
Oh, Cory, before you get in, I did want to mention, I also did do freelance t-shirt design for a client. I was supposed to do 2 over the weekend, and I actually decided to only do 1 to test the waters with the client, because they're both supposed to be in the same style. And so I figured rather than expend the resources to like make 2, it's better to make sure I have the okay from the client on the direction and everything before, you know, we all end up down some rabbit hole we regret. So
Right.
So yeah, so forgot to mention that. Sorry. Anyway,
Yeah, no problem. And Victor says, but how many videos are there out there of people putting stickers on iPads? So you're hitting a niche. And there's probably even fewer videos that are putting one of my stickers on their iPad. So
yeah,
you might be the only one on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I'll just show a few of these. I've been basically just doing like the animation. So I've rigged everything over the last month, illustrated and designed everything, and then now I'm doing the animation and rendering, which is a little frustrating because I'll animate something and then sometimes it renders in like 10 minutes, so I can go like, cool, I'm gonna go do some pull-ups and grab a drink of water, and then other times it's like, this is gonna go for the next hour and a half. So I'm like, oh, okay. So it's kind of anyway, it is what it is, but you can kind of see like some of the different scenes. And I'm using a lot of like parallax Z-space, like 3D camera moves. So it's turning out okay. A little slower than I hoped, but I'm slightly behind, but it's all right.
Did you take the photos in the bookstore, or did you find those? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just kind of curious.
Yeah, no, I ran over to well, I probably shouldn't say where it is, but I ran to a bookstore that is known, and
what bookstore could that be?
Yeah, and I took a few photos, and then I manipulated them fairly significantly so that they're not, whatever. And
plus, if you took the photos yourself, I don't think there would be any issues, right?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, my understanding of copyright is that I'm fine.
Yeah. I like the matching effect that is on there. It's very cool.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. It's a little brush in Photoshop that I just kind of I wanted like not to have super hard edges on anything. So I kind of just scrubbed the edges with a hatching brush to kind of mix it up. And then some of the titles are like super distracting, and so I'd like scrub over them a little bit just to kind of blur out certain books and whatever. But this one I was really excited about. I haven't done anything like this before.
It looks really cool.
Yeah, you messaged that, and I just been curious since seeing it, like how that came to be.
I can show you. It's basically it's basically just 6 flat illustrations, and then I just rotated them in 3D space and turned them into a box. Just parented them to one thing, and then I rotate that one thing around. And then the fingers here, because they're like seamless, there's just one layer that's his thumb and another layer that's his palm, and then I just pinned those together and kind of open them up like that. So
Nice.
yeah,
I meant to put that on when you had the actual image going up.
I should have him like just yeah. I haven't quite figured out a decent way to fold it. There's an effect that I can do that folds it in on itself, but it's an exact 180 fold, and I'd rather have it kind of curl. And it's not a 3D program. I'm not using a 3D program, so I'm cheating all of this. Everything that you're seeing that's 3D is me cheating it in one way or another. So
I love that though, because I think like even a lot of 3D from some of the guys I know who delve into that, a lot of what looks like 3D is cheated too.
right.
3D. So it's kind of a fascinating. Like I know a lot of films will, to cut the budget, they still use matte painting, and they'll do
yeah,
like really 3D looking matte painting just to like cut the cost of having to build that whole thing in 3D.
yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. I love. I feel like every second of this, I feel like there's something new that you're adding to your skill set, which is kind of cool.
Thanks. Yeah, and I've got everything. I guess I could talk about this during plans, but I've got everything rigged now, so I can just like grab stuff and move it, and then it just, and so he can, I can just grab any of these controls, and it just kind of moves them around, or I can put like little expressions on them, and they just kind of move themselves. So, like the little minor movements, I just have them kind of move themselves, and then the major movements, I do that. So,
Hey. Puppet master.
Yeah. So anyway, it's no, I want that to go away. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it's been a little bit more challenging than I thought it would be, but it's good. So, how about challenges, Josh?
Okay. Main challenge is just time, although I felt that a lot less this week. What's weird is like after so many years of kind of art directing, I feel like the structure that I've built at my workplace is a lot more efficient and a lot more streamlined, and expectations are a lot clearer. And so like things, it's kind of like if you had an engine, like you bought a car with an engine that needed some oil and like a little bit of work. And now that I've worked the engine, it's like running really smooth.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So like for rush season, it's one of the least stressful I've experienced since starting, which is kind of cool. But a lot of that's like years of work to kind of get there. But there's still like exhaustion and just trying to find time. Like we had a really busy weekend with the family and stuff, and just trying to kind of find time to make that work. And then also a friend of mine's like swamp cooler died, and so I had to like go over there like late at night and like lift this giant ridiculous swamp cooler and help him install it. So just like typical like art challenges. But what's cool is like I don't know, it's like been a week where I've been really reminded of the value of just kind of doing it, because I've had probably at least 4 conversations this week with people talking about the thing they want to do and they're not doing it, and just feeling like, I don't know, like fortunate that I'm not in that situation, like where I'm kind of thankful that like I'm surrounded by creatives who are like really challenged to like actually make stuff happen, and that encourages me with like even the quitting thing. Like that's been the biggest challenge, is like nicotine withdrawal, and like that in itself, like just the community that we've kind of built here is like, I mean, we haven't built it ourselves, but just everybody in this community is kind of built up, has been really encouraging, because it's full of people who just kind of set their minds to something and make it happen. And And to me, that's I know it's corny and long-winded, but that's been a really cool thing about the challenges this week is like realizing like, oh, well, yeah, they're challenges, but it's cool that there are challenges and that we're all kind of doing it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. How about you, Scott?
So challenges, I've had a few computer crashes, so I've lost a few things. One of them was my fault, and so I was filming that kind of mural tour and everything, and I filled up my SD card on my camera. So I went to take the stuff off of it, and so I'm deleting things as I'm pushing them off, and there was a folder with like 2 files. So I moved them over, and then I went and deleted those files. And what I didn't realize was they were the recording of me doing the marker rendering on the Take Me to Your Tuesday drawing.
Oh.
And it's not like, it's not like if it's on an SD card and you delete it, it's not like you can go to your trash and recover it or anything. So it was just gone. So I had to redo that. But once you do it once, it goes a little faster the second time, and it ended up looking a little better because I kind of had a map of which colors to use and everything like that. So it wasn't that big a deal. I thought I actually lost the inking part too, but I remember that I recorded that earlier. So not too bad, but it's just like once you do that, it's like, oh no. And I was just trying everything. I was trying to undo and all this stuff, and not to no avail. So yeah, just stuff like that, stupid mistakes. And then just in editing, a couple of times my Power Director crashed on me, and I had to re-edit a bunch of stuff. So yeah.
I hate that. And it's one of those things where it's like, there's probably like forensic software out there that you could get, but like how many hours are you going to spend trying to do that versus just like, I'll just do it again.
Yeah.
You can always send it to like Drive Savers out in San Francisco and spend like $8,000 to get it back.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. There's another like major challenge that I had too. So what I had, I kind of came across this issue with Squarespace because now that I'm selling these digital products, apparently Squarespace only lets you upload files under 300 megabytes.
Oh, yeah.
So I found sort of a workaround, but it's not exactly the one that I wanted. So I was trying to go through the Comic Maker Toolkit and try to compress this thing, trying to see if I can get it down to 300 megabytes. So I took all the PNGs, and there's a thing called Tiny PNG where you can compress PNG and it doesn't really lose any quality. So I did all that. I just kind of got rid of the Photoshop files because there really weren't any different than the PNG files.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just it was layer Photoshop file with the artwork and then a white background, which the PNG files would work just the same when you load them into Photoshop. So I took that out, and then I realized that because I have saved like all the different versions of Illustrator, but there's nothing advanced really in the way that those files are created. It's like halftones. It's all just artwork. So I could basically get rid of everything except for the like version, whatever, CS3. And then it would work with everything else. So I did all that stuff, and I got it down to like 340 megabytes, and there's nothing else I could do because I can't get rid of, I don't want to get rid of it. I need actual files. So it's just like, but now I'm just trying to figure out, eventually I'm going to have to leave Squarespace because if I keep going this route, I can't, this is kind of what I'm leaning into is, selling digital products. And if I can't sell them on this website, then I'm going to have to find something else. And I just learned Squarespace, and now it's just like, I'm not too happy about that.
Have you tried like talking to their customer service?
I could, but in reading up on it, I noticed people are saying that, we've been requesting that for a while, and they haven't shown us that they care. So.
And then the thing that Cory mentioned the last time about like doing it in like maybe segments where it's like one download and then another. Or is that?
Yeah, I mean, I might be able to. I'd have to look into that. But that's another step, which is the way that I've got it now is sort of another step. But they're also, the way I've got it now makes it easier. Like if somebody kind of wanted to steal it, but you're going to have that anyway. I mean, with digital products, I mean, there's kind of no way around it.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to take that into consideration. But so I don't know. I'm trying to figure something out.
That is kind of a bad limitation. I think the other limitation for anybody like watching who's like considering Squarespace is like on the galleries. They only allow like up to like a certain amount if it's in those, what are those called, frames or whatever. They only allow like I think up to like 80 images, and then at that point it just caps. So it like doesn't let you do more.
Yeah, that's not gonna bother me because there's no way I'm gonna put more than 80 pictures in my gallery. But
that and some of the limitations of like the blog functionality regarding that, so that like you kind of, because of those two things, like you really can't make like a fully efficient webcomic on there.
Oh yeah, so that makes sense. I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if they could make the ability to add code for like a back and forward and current button, and then also allow the galleries to extend in frames, and then like you were saying, like have more possibility for like selling like a larger storage space.
Yeah. Because like with the webcomic, I mean that makes sense that they would, because they've got all these templates, and I know there's WordPress templates, and when Tumblr was a thing where people were using comics, there were Tumblr templates, so that were specifically for comics. So you think somebody would be able to, I don't know what it takes to create a template that Squarespace can implement, but somebody should jump on that if that's something
they should sell it, because I think like honestly, if that thing were like if people were to sell like the template, which I think for somebody who maybe knows coding, it wouldn't be that complex. But I think most people would be willing to pay like $15-20 a pop for that, just to avoid the headache.
And I'm starting to realize that these digital products are kind of a good side income. So not a bad thing if you could come up with something like that. I'm sure you'd make some money off of it.
I know Gumroad talked about releasing their code at some point. I don't know when they're going to do that, but I love Gumroad for digital downloads. It doesn't embed well in a Squarespace site,
right?
But Gumroad itself is pretty awesome. And I know last year when Patreon was going through a bunch of stuff, Gumroad came out and said sometime next year we're going to release the code so that you can use it for free however you want. And that might be something that you could do, because I know there is custom code injectable stuff.
Yeah.
I just don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting. I don't know when that's going to happen. I haven't heard anybody talk about that in a long time. But
eventually I want to see, once I get to the point, I want to see if I can hire Robert Johnston to help me out with the website and stuff. And but I keep pushing that back because there's some things I need to do that I need help with.
Make a dream list. That's what I'll tell you.
What?
Make a dream list. That's what I'll tell you.
I mean, the big thing is they have all this padding in there that I don't know how to get rid of. So you've got these big gaps and everything, which I don't want. So just certain things like that.
I mean, you can go in there and just CSS override, their stuff.
When you say you can, you mean it's possible I can.
I mean, you could tell Robert what you want,
right,
and he would know what to do, I would assume.
Yeah.
So, because they have an overriding style sheet that you can do, and so that should, in theory, go over the top of their other stuff. But
got it.
Anyway.
All right. So challenges, Cory.
So as everybody knows, I've been doing kind of a nocturnal sleep schedule, and work starts tomorrow. So yesterday I woke up at 3 p.m. and that was the last time I slept. So 3 p.m. on Sunday. I took about a 30-minute nap this morning at about 7 a.m. And I slept for about an hour and a half around 6 p.m. I'm trying not to sleep too much so that I can still be tired, which is working. So I'm pretty exhausted. I was hoping to get a bunch of stuff done today, but like I hit about 8 in the morning after going from about 11 o'clock at night, and I just my brain was too foggy. Like I kind of understood what I needed to do to like make things move, but it was just too hard, and it was just like everything was. It was just like trying to push a hand cart through the mud. It was just like this isn't my, so. So most of that is just switching my sleep schedule back to a normal sleep schedule has been the biggest challenge, and then doing that while intermittent fasting is hard because like you're in a fast for 20 or for 18 hours every day, and so like add sleep deprivation to like lack of nutrition. So I'm pretty foggy anyway, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Long, rambly, foggy way.
Mhm.
But yeah. So how about plans, Josh?
All right. So let's see. I would like to, I guess we have till Wednesday. So I'd like to have at least 2 floating heads illustrated by then. There's a whole sequence of like heads at the bottom. I'll aim for like 3, but realistically probably 2. 1 tonight, hopefully. So yeah.
Cool.
Mhm.
And Scott?
So let's see. I've got to get caught up on my freelance stuff. I'm working on. I want to get further along in this commission that I'm doing. So the fonts. So I'm trying to prioritize my digital products because I was working on a font and the font's done, but then I have to do all the other packaging. But I'm thinking of putting that aside for a little bit, and then because I got this other font that I'm working on that would fit more with like a Halloween type motif. Right. So that might be good to kind of push that one forward and get that out like maybe beginning of October if possible. But then I was approached with the idea of creating a Japanese version of the Comic Maker Toolkit. So I don't know how soon they want to run with that, but I might have to kind of push that up too. So it's just a matter of prioritizing my digital products.
I just got these 2 scenes and half of this scene left to do, and then a bunch of client work where I've got to do some storyboards and things like that. So I've got anything with the green check is done, and I've got these left to do. So I don't know if I'll be able to wrap it up by Wednesday, but I'll be very close by then.
Nice.
So
that's very exciting.
You know, you have certain plans, but sometimes you have to allow yourself to kind of be a little flexible, and still be productive. I mean, you don't want to just let everything come in and just like, oh yeah, I can't do this because I got to do this. But I mean, there has to be sort of a plan, but I think you have to be flexible. I don't know if that's.
Yeah. So today's topic is, I guess you'd call that kind of adapting your plans as you go. So like I can, yeah, basically what I did is, I set out because at Josh and Scott's suggestion, I set out to lay out all of the tasks, treating myself as my own art director, right? And so I broke everything that I needed to do up into tasks, and then I estimated how long each of those tasks would take, and then I built into each task a little bit of cushion, to allow for minor problems or whatever. But then I also built in like a full extra week, which I've been eating into now, but a full extra week of kind of emergency stuff. And so a lot of inexperienced project planners they'll just say, okay, graphic designer, how long it will take you to do this? And the graphic designer says, it will take me 6 hours. And so you give them 6 hours to do it. And then you go and you tell the client or your boss or whoever, that'll be done in 6 hours. And it's like, that's one of the most dangerous things I think you can do, because what if that person has to go to the bathroom? Or what if they aren't good at estimating their time? Like most creatives are very bad at it. Or what if their computer crashes? Or what if
at hour 6, what they deliver isn't what you asked?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. What if they go in a completely wrong direction? Like, you have to build in time for mistakes and revisions and fixes and things like that. And so that's one thing. Part of that planning is that you need to build into like your contracts too, like time in between milestones to be able to iterate and fix, and like time that gets eaten up because of things that you didn't plan for. Mm-hmm. And so like in this animation for me, I have been adding scenes because as I've been piecing it together, I'm like, oh, actually this would make more sense if there was like an establishing shot over here, or if I did a real quick, like 3-second close up of this thing. But I mean, each time that I do that is more production time.
Yeah.
And if I didn't give myself a cushion, then it wouldn't work. And then the flip side of that is I have never done an animated short like the way that I'm doing it currently. And so a lot of my estimations are my best educated guess, because it's not like I can look back at the last 4 projects and be like, oh yeah, when I rigged a character like this before, it took me this long. It's just like, I've done pieces of this, so I will guess that it takes X. And a lot of that I overestimated, and so I was able to like make up some time. But a significant portion of the end stuff, I drastically underestimated, and I just loaded myself up too much last week, and I wasn't able to get to everything because of how aggressive my plan was. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I have that cushion.
Yeah.
And so I had kind of gained some of those things. Another thing along those lines is like, if I got something done quicker than I thought I would get it done, I didn't go like, go dance in the streets and party. I got working on the next thing because I wanted to utilize that advantage that I gave myself. So how do you guys do that? What kind of, I mean, I've been using Trello and just a calendar that I made in a Google spreadsheet. And I just literally just drag and drop cells around and move cards around. But I mean, what are some tips, trips, pitfalls, or whatever in your kind of organizing or as Frank's saying, the creative adaptation as you go through projects? So I know, Josh, you're coming to the end of your book.
Yeah.
And it's been very planned out and very scripted, but I also noticed that you're not saying like it'll be done on this exact date at this exact time. Mm-hmm. So how are you managing kind of the flow of that and adapting to the process?
So, I mean, getting into it, it's like a comic that I don't want to rush and I don't want to crunch into a short time frame because I want it to have breathing space. And as I'm starting to script out from the script to the page, I want it to take as many pages as it takes to effectively tell it. So if I were like limited to like 24 pages or something like that, then I'd have a lot more iterations of like roughs, revisions. I'd have a much more like measured out, like systematic way of executing the pages. But because of the fact that this is kind of an unknown length of book, and I want it to be that way, because like if I get to a point where it seems like it would be appropriate to have the next page be maybe a sentence in like a giant spread, I have the freedom to do that, and I kind of like that. So I built that into the plan of this book. Meanwhile, I also know a lot of people who take on like these really ambitious books and then never see them through. And so to avoid that, I've kind of built in a a sort of self-regulation on it that at minimum I have to do at least a panel a day of my comic. And that means like a panel of pencils, usually a little more than a panel of rough pencils, a panel of inks, whatever it is, I have to hit that panel at minimum. And that keeps the ball moving. Because I think, to me, I think one of the biggest problems, especially with people working on their own creative projects, is they don't create enough milestones for themselves, or they create forgiving milestones that are a little too easy. And it's one thing to like create like a daily goal, like, oh, well, maybe today I'll spend 30. Like I've even seen this with the hundreds, not often, and I'm not going to name names or anything, but I've seen people who will be like, my 30 minutes today was thinking about my comic. And I'm like,
right.
Really? You're going to count that? Okay. I mean, it does count. I get it. But to me, it's like I want those 30 minutes to be actionable. And so like if I'm going to commit 30 minutes, which I feel is a really good challenge at first, but I think you're going to have to commit a little more than 30 minutes to get this kind of thing done. You have to have like a goal that kind of pushes you a little far. And for me, the goal that doesn't push too far but doesn't push too little is that panel a day goal. And I think were I to have like a shorter commute, I'd probably make it 2 panels a day. If I could add those 3 extra hours into my day, I might be like, okay, I need to at minimum do like half a page or like 3 panels, something like that.
Yeah.
But with the time I have, that's kind of what works. I will also say having a big project like that for a personal project, and this goes for anything like with exercise or anything else, you have to make it non-negotiable. So the catch being like, I got a freelance project, and the freelance project actually comes secondary to the book. Like everything I get art-wise that's not my day job comes secondary to the book. Like that panel a day thing is non-negotiable. And the fact that I've kind of set that, I miss every once in a while. I'll miss a day. But it's surprising how much I don't miss a day because I've set that in stone as like, it doesn't matter how tired I am, if I'm sick, if like, if I have to go to like back to school night with my kid, like if there's, a Disneyland trip, whatever it is, I got to do that panel. And making that non-negotiable makes it happen too. Because I think if you allow these, personal projects to be kind of flexible and pushed around, like it will be hard to kind of prioritize. And of course, that would probably be different if like I didn't have a day job. If I didn't have a day job, that freelance would be immediately priority the second I got it, until I was to the point of being booked for freelance for like 8 months. At that point, I might be like, okay, I can allow myself to prioritize this. So it really depends, but I'd say those 2 things, like setting actionable but challenging goals that you do not forgive yourself for missing. And then second, basically making it a non-negotiable, so that, as all the chaos of life happens, as like somebody in the family gets sick, or like there's horrible things that happen all the time to people in life. And so it kind of accommodates for that, because if it's a non-negotiable, it's going to get done. And that's kind of my method. I don't know if that makes sense. What about you, Scott? Like what's your kind of trick to the whole thing?
So it's a little, hold on a second. Stop on something. Okay, so it's a little bit of a combination between sort of, being flexible and also having sort of a schedule to go by. Like right now, so I'm in this. I have this mastermind group, and I had set some goals for this 3-month period that we're doing this mastermind, and I didn't realize it, but I guess we had just reached our halfway point, and I guess it just kind of flew by. And even though I think I'm I'm pretty productive. I mean, I think a lot of the reasons why a lot of the people are in the mastermind group is to kind of hold them accountable. But see, I'm already pretty good at that. Plus I have you guys to kind of help me with that already. So I tend to be fairly productive. But because of that, I may have bitten off more than I could chew. Because there's people working who are also creating digital products, and like mine was the first one was almost already done when I launched it, and I'm already kind of, getting close to finishing another one. So I wanted to create 3 digital products. I also wanted to update my website and start a Patreon, and I can't remember if there was anything else. But now I'm realizing that I don't know if I'm going to get to that website, and I don't know if hopefully I'll get sort of the Patreon, but I mean, these kind of things creep up because you've got all these other responsibility. So I mean, and sometimes you have to shift things around because things like I don't know how to explain this, but sometimes I have to reprioritize things because what I originally planned to be important, like when I was talking about the fonts. So I started designing this one font, and then I realized that, well, this other font that I was planning makes more sense to get that out first, just because of, it could work with Halloween or whatever. So you're kind of shuffling things around that way. So I try to be flexible, but I really, before I do kind of move something out, I really have to weigh the importance of it, if that's really a good idea. And the other thing, and sometimes I shift things around just because of what's going on in my day. Like there's certain tasks that make more sense. Like if I know I have to be somewhere, or if I have an errand to run later on, or if I have to take my son to school or whatever, there's certain, like if I have little windows of time, I'm probably not going to start like a big project. Or there's sometimes that I, like today, I just decided I decided to push some of the other stuff off, some of the freelance and everything, to just edit some stuff, because I was just in that mode where I didn't really want to, with editing, I don't really have to be too creative. It's just a matter of, it's just time consuming. Yeah. And today I just felt like it was one of those days where that's kind of what I needed. So sometimes it depends on, what's right for that particular day, or I look at what's coming up and I'm like, I know tomorrow I got to take my son to school. And when I do that, I have to kind of wait around for him to get done. And so that's a good day for me to do my sketching. So I didn't do any sketching today, knowing that tomorrow that I can go to Starbucks and I can start doing the sketching for some of my freelance work. So it made sense for me to push the freelance stuff out tomorrow. So I just kind of look at my schedule, and because schedules change, and when you've got family and you got all these other different obligations, even though because I do work from home, I can benefit from a lot of that stuff. My schedule's my schedule is more flexible, but so I have my, Trello and everything, and that's pretty structured, and I always revisiting it, but I'm not afraid to switch things up for the betterment of whatever the end product is,
100%. Yeah. So. And I relate to that a lot, because like my book, initially I was projecting that I'd have it done by May, and you'll notice it's way past May. And I'm not beating myself up about that, because if I were to rush it to get it done by May, it would be an inferior product. Whereas like I know when I'm done with this thing, I know it's going to be good. And that's like that's a huge thing, because like, once again, I'm not doing this project for like mass amounts of acclaim and money. I'm doing it because it's like I want to write a really good graphic novel. And I feel like if I kind of like bent over to hit the schedule, it wouldn't be all that different from commercial work. And it's like I don't really need to do that like on this project. So like, to me, that's the neat thing, is like, once again, I'm not going to just throw a deadline out the window, but I will allow more time to kind of make it work efficiently to where I need it to work. And then what you were talking about with juggling tasks and stuff too. It's like when I had to do freelance this weekend, we had all sorts of stuff around town. So I made sure I got everything out of the way so that I could just knock out the freelance. So it's like even my comic work and my workouts and all of that, it's like I scheduled my whole day so that I'd have this like 1.5 hour, 2 hour window where I could just hardcore focus and just knock out the freelance thing effectively. Whereas any other time in that day, my brain would be being distracted by all sorts of things. And on freelance, you got to follow the brief and you got to have focus and be able to pay attention to the brief, make sure you're considering what the client wants and stuff. So anyhow, 100% relate to what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a difference between procrastination and kind of reevaluating tasks and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not pushing things aside because I don't want to get it done, or I'm kind of afraid of finishing or succeeding or anything like that. But and
it sounds more like you're thinking about efficiency. Like
it's all based on my schedule. My schedule is although it's flexible, it's tight. Like I know all the things I need to complete. Whether like at the end of the week, I know what I have to have done at the end of the week. Whether part of that was supposed to be done on a Tuesday and I move it to a Wednesday and switch things like that, I still try to hit kind of my thing for the end of the week. And then when things happen and things like, for instance, like, not to get too personal, but, with like, sometimes my ex will say, oh, I got this appointment, that's something I've known about. And she just kind of throws that at me, which makes me kind of have to move my schedule around. And if I had more of an advance notice, it wouldn't be so much of a problem. But like my days are pretty much kind of planned out. I mean, there's not really a lot of free time. Yeah. So any like wrench that gets thrown in my schedule, it's kind of, then I have to reevaluate everything. And again, I mean, I've got to the point where I'm pretty good at like, okay, this just fell in my lap. So what do I do now to make the better of the situation and everything like that? But so, I mean, I think it's again, it's just having your set goals, knowing kind of when they're done, but being a little flexible and just kind of looking at your week as a whole, maybe, or because I've got like in Trello, I've got my monthly goals, but I've always got my weekly, like all my weekly tasks. I've got a board for my weekly task, and the good thing is I can kind of just move that stuff around back and forth, but just kind of being cognizant of all the things I have to do. And it's I mean, if I move one thing, then I got to shift another, and just knowing how to do that. And it takes some practice and everything, but
yeah, I mean, I think if we always talk about the war of art on this because it's such a good book, but if like to keep with that analogy from that we're also fond of, the idea that we're like in battle to kind of be creatives. It's you're kind of fighting resistance, and like another kind of apt analogy to battle is like if you're going to war and you get on a battleground, things change on the ground, and if you're kind of set in your plans and you've allowed no flexibility within that, you might be potentially going into a complete loss because conditions change. Like, so let's say you're heading into battle and you've drawn all your plans based on the idea of like the enemy is going to be around this specific creek. Well, you get there and then they're not there at the creek, so conditions change. So your whole plan to like toss them all on the creek has to adapt to like a new plan because they outthought you, or like they've conditions have changed or weather's changed. And so you have to be able to reroute and kind of adapt and kind of modify your plans based on like the battle ahead. And I think that's kind of what you're getting into, where it's like on a daily basis, like you might have your to-do list, but conditions change and it might be more advantageous and more effective to kind of hit something first rather than the thing that maybe initially you thought would be effective. Or like Cory was describing, where it's like you get into the weeds of like building an animation and you might find like, oh, okay, I thought this would be a good thing to do first, but maybe I need to build this asset and build this transition because this isn't quite working. whereas you can kind of pre-plan a lot, but there's still a lot of play in creative, and part of play is adaptation. Because like, what kind of game is it if there's rules but there's no like flexibility in the game? That would be a boring game.
So I think we're all kind of talking around this concept that I've started to articulate to my students as soft goals or soft deadlines and hard deadlines. Mm-hmm. And I didn't coin those terms, but basically, like, the example that I give is, if you are designing an ad for a magazine, I've found the bigger the magazine, the more padding that they give you on their due dates most of the time. And so oftentimes, if I got slammed, I would call up the publisher and I'd say, hey, I know the deadline is, tomorrow at 4. I can get you something, but I could get you something better if I had a little bit more time. What's the actual deadline? And more often than not, they would say, oh yeah, if you get it to me, by Thursday, it'll be fine, or whatever. Right.
That's also if that magazine has a good art director.
Yes. And that's why I say typically
secret tip about good art directors is they put in fake deadlines all the time for that reason.
Right. And that's why I say it's typically the bigger magazines, because if you get like a family-owned, family-operated, like small niche trade magazine, they're flying by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, they don't know any better. Yeah.
But there are other times where you call up the publisher and you say, hey, can I get an extension on this? And they're like, nope, we're going to print with or without you. You get it to us by this date, or you don't, and you're not in the book. We'll just put something else in. Because we ship on time and this is happening. And so that would be an example of a hard deadline. Mm-hmm. So as we're planning our individual projects, a hard deadline is something that is immovable. It's something where you're like, this is a non-negotiable. This is a ship date. This is a deliver date, or whatever. And so if you put your soft deadlines well ahead of that, then your soft deadlines can be malleable. And your ex throws a wrench in your day, your kid gets strep, which happened to me this weekend, or whatever, like, something happens that was unforeseen, including you estimated your time wrong or whatever. Those soft deadlines can easily be moved around. Yeah. But you're moving them at a cost. Mm-hmm. And so you just know, like, if on one side of the equation you have 2 + 2 and the other side of the equation you have 4, if you take one away from those, you can still do 1 + 3 and it'll still equal out to 4. Mm-hmm. Right? But you can't take like 3 away, because then you're just done. And so what you have to do with those soft deadlines is you have to plan to the hard deadline and say, yeah, I can move this because I can cut a corner here, or I can move this because I built in some padding, or I can adjust this because I think I can double that thing up now that I've learned something new, or whatever. Your soft deadlines become kind of the pieces that you throw around, but the end result is your hard deadline, and it has to be, or major milestones are hard deadlines, especially if you're on a project where you are working collaboratively, because then it becomes all the kinds of interdependencies and things like that. Like on an animation by myself, I can kind of move whatever I want around because I'm only disrupting my own schedule. Sure. But if I'm like, I'll just rig this later, and I'm collaborating with somebody and they're like waiting and they've got a slot open for me to get them something so that they can animate something I've rigged, without communicating with them, I can't just move that around, because that becomes an interdependency milestone where I'm passing the torch to somebody else. Yeah. And so there's kind of dominoes that kind of show up.
Yeah, and I think a good thing to reiterate too is, like, if you're dipping into doing freelance and you're given a deadline, even if that deadline that you're being given is a soft deadline, I wouldn't test it, because the best way to build your reputation, I mean, obviously, if you get to a point where, like, I don't know, you get in a car crash or something, you can't do your work, obviously communication's everything. But one thing that's really good for building your reputation in freelance is always hit your deadlines, whether it's soft or hard. With your personal projects, sure, be flexible. But one way to trick yourself to doing that, because that's very hard to do, is don't make your deadline the client's deadline. Like the client says, I need this in a week. You need it in half a week. And if you hit half a week, then great, it's done. If you don't hit half a week, you've built a buffer. And so it's going to come down to the wire, but at least you've built it to where there is a wire for it to come down to. Because I know there's editorials I've done where they're for pretty big magazines, like Women's Health is a good example. They didn't have soft deadlines. Like you hit it or you literally aren't going to be in the magazine. Now they have to scramble and come up with filler for an article that they've designed to have your illustration in it. And they will never hire you again because they literally are going to be furious because now their in-house staff has to scramble and basically make up for your error. So it's one of those things of now, if you let them know in advance, you might get hired again. But if you let them know like on the day, like this just isn't going to get in, that's a really quick way to lose a lot of clients and lose your reputation in the industry. So like I think what we're talking about, like building these habits with your own personal projects, is really good for professional projects too. Because once again, you have your hard deadline, that's inflexible. In order to make that hard deadline more soft, you build a bunch of soft deadlines before it. So it's like building soft landings before you're going to stop your car, or like easing on the brakes before you come to a complete stop. Because if you just hit the brakes, you're going to get whiplash. But if you ease into a stop, it's a much easier thing. So I think that's a very valuable kind of skill to kind of grow.
Yeah, and I would say I really liked what you're talking about, because I treat my soft deadlines as hard deadlines until I absolutely can't anymore. But 100%. Nobody else really knows unless I tell them. Like I'm beating myself up because I've missed self-imposed soft deadlines with padding. Yeah. But I don't think anybody would know unless I was doing an art check and I said, exactly, I wanted to get these 5 scenes done. I got 3.5 of them done. Yeah. I'm still going to meet what I said I was going to meet because X, Y, and Z. But, I'm still doing, and I will on client work and things, on school work, on projects that are super important with some sort of expectation or of deliverable or whatever. I will treat those soft deadlines as hard deadlines to the point of missing sleep, to the point of doing, what I need to do to make that work and I've added this in as I've aged within a reasonable health margin, right? 100%. Because I used to do this to a stressful detriment to myself. And now I'm like, because I'm like that, I will evaluate when I'm like, okay, do I need to pull an all-nighter? It's like, no, I can push this another day because I actually built 4 days padding into it. And so I'm fine. Yeah, or no, I actually really do.
Yeah. And is that day worth like 2 weeks of just feeling like hell and potentially like cutting into your life expectancy, so. Right. And another thing you mentioned that was really good is like no art director is going to hate you for saying like, hey, I've been working on this thing. It could be better. Right. If I could get one more day, I could make this excellent. Or if I could get another week, this would be like mind-blowingly good.
I show people what I've got in those situations. I say, this is where I am. Yeah. I'm now at a point where I can go down one of 2 paths. Yeah. One path is going to increase the quality, but push the deadline a bit. The other path will get you exactly what you asked for, and will meet the deadline. And you let them decide, because oftentimes they'll be like, we're not paying you anymore, and what you're going to deliver on time is exactly what we need, so don't worry about it. Yeah. Or, no, dude, that's awesome. Let's do it. That's great. We've got a couple extra days that I built in, so you're all right.
Yeah, and I think most industries outside of editorial is one of the industries where like they just like, especially like, I mean, this barely exists anymore as an industry, but like back when I'd get hired by weeklies, like you can't blow a weekly deadline. Like they hire you, it's due the next day at a certain time so they can throw it in the layout and it's to press. And it's like, if you miss that, you're just like that. There is no like, oh, I need to make this better. It's like you get it by this time and you put out what you got.
Yeah.
But like, you know, if you're like working with a book publisher, some of them have like a hard release date, but like Cory was saying, like they'll build in, a lot of publishers build in a lot of cushion because they're aware of it. And just like Cory was saying, like the only ones who don't are usually like new publishers who haven't learned the hard way. Like that little like deadline where you didn't build any padding in, you're screwed, you know?
Yeah.
So like he was saying, like, you know, if you think about it, let's say you're going to buy a car and you aren't necessarily in need of a car. Like your car's still running. You just kind of are at that point where you kind of need a new car. And somebody is like, look, if you pay this much for this car today, you'll get the car and it'll be functional. If you pay for it next week, you're going to get like a car with like all these awesome hookups and everything you can possibly imagine with a better engine for exactly the same price. Just give me a week. Most people would probably be like, same cost, better product. I'll wait a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you put yourself in an emergency where you're like, I don't have that luxury because I have to have this vehicle like this second because I've put myself in this situation, they make you that offer and you don't actually have a choice.
Yep.
And so when you fail to plan ahead and leave yourself a cushion and plan for contingencies and things, you run into some issues, which brings up a topic that we should kind of cover. I think it'd be really interesting. We won't go into specific numbers, but general principles about finances and how finances can hinder or help your ability to create. Would be a super interesting topic, because if you put yourself in a situation where I have to, meet this like razor thin edge margin, so I've got to pull like 80 hours a week, or I've got to do this or whatever. Well, guess what? A daily webcomic probably isn't in your future.
Yeah.
But if you're able to cut your costs and reduce your debt and get going and get a little, well, then you've got a little extra time, because you don't need to make as much money. There's kind of that same situation. If you're able to plan ahead, then you can do some really interesting things, and it really opens things up.
I love it. Okay.
So whether it's deadlines or finances or whatever, I don't know. I hate that planning is so important, because I really dislike it. I really wish I could just like fly by the seat of my pants, but I find myself again and again and again relying super heavily on a really well laid out structured plan, even though I'm a fairly chaotic, unstructured individual. It's just, you just got to do it, because otherwise that chaos just turns into directionless nothingness, and you never get anything done, and everything always blows up. And if you're not able to prioritize, then the urgent things that are never important take over, and you never get anything important done because it doesn't feel urgent. It's this big snowball. So if you're like me and you don't like planning, just take your medicine and eat your vegetables, because it's the only way to do it.
So Train in Vain is a planned, chaotic song. And the planning allows for a really badass, kind of awesome song. If you want to do a Fish concert, don't plan. All right.
All right. Where can we find your stuff, Josh?
If you're a Fish fan, you probably won't want to find my stuff now, because I just made a dig. But anyhow, you can find my stuff at joshuakemble.com. Quarterlystories.com will take you directly to my comic about faith and mental illness that I handwrite, hand letter, hand ink, and draw on these giant pages like this. Pow.
Every time you hold one of those up, it shocks me how big they are.
I know. I did that to shock you, Cory. To shock you. So you guys can check that out and go to topics.io and search for quarterly stories there, and you can add it to your library. And I really do promise to update this Wednesday, because it's been quite a few weeks since I've updated on there, and that's just literally a lack of planning on my part to tie into this whole topic. So yeah.
Cool. Josh, Scott, where can we find your stuff?
You can find my stuff at circworks.com. I've got the Comic Maker Toolkit, and if you're just getting started and you're a little iffy about making that purchase, then first download the Comic Maker Starter Kit, and we'll dig into that. That one is free.
What?
Yes, it's completely free, as it says in the bottom there. Yeah, so you just join the mailing list and you'll get the Comic Maker Starter Kit free. And if you want more after that, then get the Comic Maker Toolkit. And I'm happy to say that a lot of people that already have the Starter Kit have got the Toolkit, and they're saying they love it. They love having both, because there's definitely more in the Toolkit, but there are a couple of things in the Starter Kit that aren't in the Toolkit. So get them both if you can.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of people on Instagram posting like character design sketches where they're using this blue turnaround template that Scott made. And it's cool to see because it's a great template and it's a good structure to kind of build stuff off of. And I just think it's a cool resource that everybody should be using. And it's fun to see people using Scott's templates for that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely more to come. That's what I'm working on. So,
Salazar, the trick to being intimidated by drawing on small notebook paper as opposed to large, I am actually kind of the reverse, where I find myself more free and loose on a larger paper because I know it'll reduce to have more detail. Whereas if I draw really tiny, I know that's going to show up exact to what I draw, and I get freaked out. And so part of why I switched to such a large format was that I realized I keep stressing about getting these little details on these little pieces, and I was like, I could just work bigger and then be a little looser and not have to worry about it, because it'll reduce down and have more detail than I could hit with a tiny space. So that's my reasoning behind it, but I get it. Yeah, go big.
Also another topic one of these times would be drawing from your fingers, your wrist, and your shoulder.
Ooh,
I'm bad about that.
That'd be a topic where I feel guilty because I should be using my arm, but I'm a hand noodler.
Yeah. When I draw big though, I'm able to use my back and my shoulder a lot more. Anyway,
that topic. Oh yes.
Yeah, that's for another time. If you want to see my stuff, you can go to corykerr.com, and that is right there. Also, I've been putting a lot of stuff up on Instagram and Twitter, so go check that out. And if you see me tweet or mention something on Instagram, leave a comment, like it, or whatever you want to do with that, because that always helps with stuff. And if you want to stream like we're streaming right now, I've got a little affiliate link at corykerr.com/48hr, also in the description of this video. And we're using StreamYard. There is a free version, which has a weird looking duck in the upper right-hand corner. And if you don't mind that duck, it's got all the bells and the whistles, except for some full screen stuff, but it's pretty legit. We like it. And so you can check that out. And that's pretty much it. But go ahead and check out the stuff that I'm doing. Scott has one more thing to say.
Yeah, I just want to mention, if anyone's not aware, tomorrow is Tuesday, which is Take Me to Your Leader Tuesday. It's a challenge that Marshall Lee and I are doing, where basically anyone can join in just any Tuesday you want. You don't have to, it's not continuous or anything like that. You can do it whenever you want, but on a Tuesday, just draw an alien and then post it with the hashtag Take Me to Your Leader Tuesday, or the initials. And yeah, they're there. TMTYLT. I have to read it. I can't remember the initials offhand. But so yeah, just hashtag it either on Instagram, or if you got a video, we'll try to put it in a playlist.
And how much does it cost to participate in Taking Me to Your Leader? Tuesday.
$100,000.
Oh.
No, it's completely free. Anyone can participate. It's just the cost of whatever art supplies you're using and whatever device you're using to post it in.
All right. That's so
good
cool.
stuff. All right. Well, we will see you guys in a couple days. Keep making stuff. Oh, Frank made I believe it was his first comic, which is cool. He's working on a mini comic.
Yeah, I saw him working on. I think it was Instagram. I saw that. It's pretty awesome.
So great job on jumping in and getting started. That's the best way to do this stuff.
That's the hardest part.
All right. We'll see you guys all in a couple days.